Book of Heaven, Volume 12, Part 9. January 25th, 1919. The divine will is light, and the one who lives in it becomes light. Jesus dwells in the one who lives in the divine will, as he did in his humanity. After having spent most bitter days of privation of my sweet Jesus, of my life, of my all, my poor heart could take no more. I was saying to myself, what hard lot was reserved for me. After so many promises, he left me. Where is his love now? Ah, who knows whether I myself have not been the cause of his abandonment, rendering myself unworthy of him. Ah, maybe it was that night when he wanted to speak about the troubles of the world, and he started saying that the heart of man is still bloodthirsty, and that the battles are not finished, because the thirst for blood is not yet extinguished in the human heart. And I said to him, Jesus, you always want to talk about these troubles. Leave them aside. Let's talk about something else. And he, afflicted, remained silent. Ah, maybe he was offended. My life, forgive me. I won't do it any more. But come. While I was saying this and other nonsense, I felt myself lose consciousness, and I saw my sweet Jesus inside of me, alone and taciturn, walking from one point of my interior to another, and as though he would now stumble at one point, now bump into another. I was all confused and did not dare to tell him anything, but I thought, who knows how many sins there are in me that make Jesus bump? But he, all goodness, looked at me, though he seemed tired and was dripping sweat, and he told me, my daughter, poor martyr, not of faith but of love, not human, but divine martyr, because your most cruel martyrdom is my privation, which places on you the seal of divine martyr. Why do you fear and doubt about my love? And besides, how can I leave you? I dwell in you, as within my humanity. And just as I enclosed the entire world in my humanity, so do I enclose it in you. Did you not see that while I was walking, now I bumped and now I stumbled? Those were the sins, the evil souls that I encountered. What pain for my heart! It is from within you that I allot the destiny of the world. It is your humanity that shelters me, just as mine did for my divinity. If my divinity did not have my humanity to give it shelter, the poor creatures would have no escape, either in time or in eternity. And divine justice would no longer look at the creature as its own, deserving preservation, but as an enemy, deserving destruction. Now, my humanity is glorious, and a humanity that may grieve, suffer, share the pains with me, love souls together with me, and lay down its life in order to save them, is necessary for me. I have chosen you. Aren't you happy? Therefore I want to tell you everything. My pains, the chastisements that creatures deserve, so that you may take part in everything and form one single thing with me. And this is also why I want you in the height of my will, so that wherever you cannot reach with your will, with mine you shall reach everything that befits the office of my humanity. Therefore fear no more. Do not afflict me with your pains, with the fears that I may abandon you. I get enough of these from other creatures. Do you want to increase my pains with yours? No, no, be sure, your Jesus shall not leave you. Then afterwards he came back again, showing himself crucified, transforming me into himself and into his pains. And he added, "My daughter, my will is light, and the one who lives of it becomes light, and as light, she easily enters into my most pure light, and has the key to open and take whatever she wants. But in order to be able to open, a key must be without rust or mud, and the lock itself must be of iron. Otherwise the key cannot open. In the same way, the soul, to be able to open with the key of my will, must not mix the rust of her own will, nor a shadow of the mud of earthly things. Only in this way can we combine together, and she can make whatever she wants of me, and I whatever I want of her." After this I saw my mamma and a late confessor of mine. I wanted to tell them about my state, and they said to me, "In these days you have run the risk that the Lord would suspend you completely from the state of victim, and we, the whole of purgatory and heaven, have prayed very much, and how much we did, so that the Lord would not do that. From this you can comprehend how justice is still full of grave chastisements. Therefore have patience, and do not get tired." January 27th, 1919. The 3 mortal wounds of the heart of Jesus. As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus, on coming, made me see his adorable heart all full of wounds, from which rivers of blood gushed out. And all sorrowful he told me, "My daughter, among the many wounds that my heart contains, there are 3 wounds that give me mortal pains, and such bitterness of sorrow as to surpass all the other wounds together. These are the pains of my loving souls. When I see a soul, all mine, suffering because of me, tortured, trampled upon, ready to suffer even the most painful death for me, I feel her pains as if they were my own, and maybe even more. Love knows how to open deeper gashes, to the extent of making one not feel the other pains. Into this first wound enters my dear mamma as the first. Oh, how her heart, pierced because of my pains, overflowed into mine, and felt vividly all its piercings. And in seeing her dying, yet not dying, because of my death, I felt the torment, the harshness of her martyrdom in my heart, and I felt the pains of my death that the heart of my dear mamma felt, and my heart died together with hers. So all my pains, united together before the pains of my mamma, surpassed everything. It was right that my celestial mamma have the first place in my heart, both in sorrow and in love, because each pain suffered for love of me opened seas of graces and of love that poured into her pierced heart. Into this wound enter all the souls who suffer because of me, and out of pure love. You yourself enter into it, and even if all offended me and no one loved me, I would find in you the love that can compensate me for all. Therefore, when creatures cast me away and force me to run away from them, very quickly I come to take refuge in you, as in my hiding place, and finding my own love, not theirs, and suffering only for me, I say, I do not regret having created heaven and earth, and having suffered so much. The soul who loves me, and who suffers for me, is all my contentment, my happiness, my reward for everything I have done. And as though putting all the rest aside, I delight and play with her. However, this wound of love in my heart, while it is the most painful, such as to surpass everything, it contains two effects at the same time. It gives me intense pain and highest joy, unspeakable bitterness, and indescribable sweetness, painful death, and glorious life. These are the excesses of my love, inconceivable to created mind. And in fact, how many contentments did my heart not find in the sorrows of my pierced mamma? The second mortal wound of my heart is ingratitude. With ingratitude, the creature closes my heart. Even more, she herself turns the key with double locks, and my heart swells because it wants to pour graces and love, and it cannot, because the creature has closed it and has put on it the seal with her ingratitude. And I become delirious. I agonize without hope that this wound may be healed, because ingratitude keeps embittering it more and more, giving me mortal pain. The third one is obstinacy. What mortal wound for my heart! Obstinacy is the destruction of all the goods I have done for the creature. It is the signature of declaration that the creature places, that she no longer recognizes me, that she no longer belongs to me. It is the key of hell into which the creature goes to hurl herself. My heart feels the tearing of it. It is torn to pieces, and I feel one of those pieces being taken away from me. What mortal wound obstinacy is! My daughter, enter into my heart and take part in these wounds of mine. Compassionate my tormented heart. Let us suffer together and let us pray. I entered into his heart. How painful, but beautiful it was to suffer and pray with Jesus. January 29th, 1919. God shall accomplish the third renewal of humanity by manifesting what his divinity did within his humanity. I was doing the adoration to the wounds of blessed Jesus, and at the end I recited the creed, intending to enter into the immensity of the divine will, in which are all the acts of creatures, past, present, and future, and even those acts that the creature should do, and because of negligence and wickedness, she has not done. And I was saying, my Jesus, my love, I enter into your volition, and with this creed I intend to redo, to repair, all the acts of faith that creatures have not done, all the disbeliefs, and the adoration that is due to God as Creator. While I was saying these and other things, I felt my intelligence being dissolved in the divine will, and a light investing my intellect, inside of which I could see my sweet Jesus. And this light spoke and spoke. But who can say everything? I shall say it confusedly. And besides, I feel such repugnance that if obedience were not so strict, but more indulgent, it would not force me into such sacrifices. But you, my life, give me strength, and do not leave the poor little ignorant one on her own. Now, it seemed that he was saying to me, my beloved daughter, I want to make known to you the order of my providence. Every course of 2,000 years I have renewed the world. In the first 2,000 years, I renewed it with the flood. In the second 2,000, I renewed it with my coming upon earth, in which I manifested my humanity, from which, as though from many fissures, my divinity shone forth. And the good and the very saints of the following 2,000 years have lived of the fruits of my humanity, and, in drops, they have enjoyed my divinity. Now, we are at the turn of the third 2,000 years, and there shall be a third renewal. This is the reason for the general confusion. It is nothing other than the preparation for the third renewal. And if in the second renewal I manifested what my humanity did and suffered, and very little of what the divinity was operating, now, in this third renewal, after the earth has been purged, and the current generation destroyed for the most part, I shall be even more generous with creatures, and I shall accomplish the renewal by manifesting what my divinity did within my humanity, how my divine will acted with my human will, how everything remained linked within me, how I did and redid everything, and even one thought of each creature was redone by me and sealed with my divine volition. My love wants its outpouring, and wants to make known the excesses that my divinity operated in my humanity for the good of creatures, that surpass by far the excesses that my humanity operated externally. This is also why I often speak to you about the living in my will, that I have not manifested to anyone until now. At the most, they have known the shadow of my will, the grace, the sweetness that doing it contains, but to penetrate inside of it, to embrace immensity, to multiply oneself with me and penetrate everywhere, even while being on earth, both into heaven and into the hearts, to lay down the human ways and act with the divine ways. This is not yet known. So much so that not to a few shall it appear strange, and those who do not keep their minds open to the light of truth shall not understand a thing. But I, little by little, shall make my way, manifesting now one truth, now another, of this living in my will, so that they shall end up comprehending it. Now, the first link that connected the true living in my will was my humanity. My humanity, identified with my divinity, swam in the eternal volition and kept tracing all the acts of creatures in order to make them its own and give to the Father a divine glory on the part of creatures, and bring to all the acts of creatures the value, the love, the kiss of the eternal volition. In this sphere of the eternal volition, I could see all the acts of creatures that could possibly be done and were not done, and the very good acts done badly. And I did those that were not done, and I redid those done badly. Now, these acts, not done, and done only by me, are all suspended in my will, and I await the creatures to come to live in my volition, and repeat in my will that which I did. And this is why I chose you as the second link of connection with my humanity, forming one single link with mine, living in my volition, repeating my very acts. Otherwise, on this side, my love would remain without outpouring, without glory on the part of creatures for what my divinity operated in my humanity, and without the perfect purpose of creation that must be enclosed and perfected in my will. It would be as if I had shed all my blood, suffered so much, and no one had known it. Who would have loved me? Which heart would be shaken? No one, and therefore in no one would I have had my fruits, the glory of my redemption. And I, interrupting the speaking of Jesus, said, "My love, if there is so much good about this living in the divine will, why have you not manifested it before?" And he, "My daughter, first I had to make known what my humanity did and suffered on the outside, to be able to dispose souls to knowing what my divinity did on the inside. The creature is incapable of comprehending my work altogether. Therefore I keep manifesting myself little by little. Then, from your link of connection with me, the other links of creatures shall be connected, and I shall have crowds of souls who, living in my volition, shall redo all the acts of creatures. And I shall have the glory of many suspended acts done only by me, also from creatures. And these from all classes, virgins, priests, lay people, according to their office. They shall no longer operate humanly, but penetrating into my will, their acts shall multiply for all in a way fully divine, and I shall have, on the part of creatures, the divine glory of many sacraments received and administered in a human way, others profaned, others sullied with interest, and of many good works in which I remain more dishonored than honored. I so much long for this time, and you pray and long for it together with me, and do not move your link of connection with mine, starting yourself as the first one. February 4th, 1919, the interior passion that the divinity made the humanity of Jesus suffer during the course of his whole life. Continuing in my usual state, for about 3 days I felt myself lost in God. Many times good Jesus drew me inside his most holy humanity, and I swam in the immense sea of the divinity. Oh, how many things could be seen! How clearly one could see everything that the divinity operated in the humanity! And very often my Jesus interrupted my surprises, saying to me, "See, my daughter, with what excess of love I loved the creature. My divinity was jealous of entrusting to the creature the task of redemption, making me suffer the passion. The creature was impotent to make me die as many times for as many creatures as had come out, and were to come out to the light of creation, and for as many mortal sins as they would have the disgrace to commit. The divinity wanted life for each life of creature, and life for each death that by mortal sin she gave herself. Who could be so powerful over me as to give me so many deaths, if not my divinity? Who would have had the strength, the love, the constancy to see me die so many times, if not my divinity? The creature would have grown tired and fallen short. And do not think that this crafting of my divinity started late, but as soon as my conception was accomplished, even in the womb of my mamma, who many times was aware of my pains, and remained martyred, and felt death together with me. So even from the maternal womb, my divinity took on the commitment of loving executioner. But because loving, more demanding and inflexible, so much so that my groaning humanity was spared not even one thorn, not one nail. But not like the thorns, the nails, the scourges I suffered in the passion that creatures gave me, and that did not multiply. As many as they inflicted, so many remained. Rather, those of my divinity multiplied at each offense. As many thorns for as many evil thoughts, as many nails for as many unworthy works, as many blows for as many pleasures, as many pains for as much diversity of offenses. Therefore, they were seas of pains, innumerable thorns, nails, and blows. In the face of the passion that the divinity gave me, the passion that creatures gave me on the last of my days was nothing but the shadow, the image of what my divinity made me suffer during the course of my life. This is why I love souls so much. They are lives that they cost me. They are pains inconceivable to created mind. Therefore, enter into my divinity, and see and touch with your own hand what I suffered. I don't know how. I found myself inside the divine immensity, as it erected the throne of justice for each creature, to which sweet Jesus had to answer for each act of creature, suffer their pains, their death, pay the penalty for everything. And Jesus, like a sweet little lamb, was killed by divine hands, to rise again and suffer more deaths. Oh God, what harrowing pains! To die in order to rise again, and to rise again in order to submit to a more harrowing death. I felt myself dying and seeing my sweet Jesus being killed so many times. I would have wanted to spare the one who loves me so much, even just one death. Oh, how well I comprehended that only the divinity could make my sweet Jesus suffer so much, and could boast of having loved men to folly and to excess, with unheard of pains, and with infinite love. Neither angel nor man had this power in hand of being able to love us with such great heroism of sacrifice as a God. But who can say everything? My poor mind swam in that immense sea of light, of love, and of pains, and I remained as though drowned, without being able to get out. And if my lovable Jesus had not drawn me into the little sea of his most holy humanity, in which the mind was not so submerged, without being able to see any boundary, I could not have said a thing. Then, after this, my sweet Jesus added, "Beloved daughter, birth from my life, come into my will. Come and see how much there is to substitute for so many acts of mine, still suspended, not yet substituted for by creatures. My will must be in you as the first wheel of the clock. If it moves, all the other wheels move, and the clock signals the hours and the minutes. So all the accord is in the motion of this first wheel. And if this first wheel has no motion, the clock is stopped. In the same way, the first wheel in you must be my will, that must give motion to your thoughts, to your heart, to your desires, to everything. And since my will is the central wheel of my being, of creation, and of everything, your motion, coming out from this center, shall come to substitute for many acts of creatures, and multiplying in the motions of all as central motion, it shall come to lay before my throne, on their behalf, the acts of creatures, substituting for everything. Therefore be attentive. Your mission is great. It is fully divine. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 12, Part 9. Fiat.